Yeah, you heard that right. LeBronJames really stepped in and shut down Patrick Beverley after those strange comments he made about Trey Young. And the wild part is how fast it all blew up. What started as a basic Twitter question about the All-Star game turned into Trey Young straight up embarrassing Beverley in public, with LeBron putting him in his place right after. And just wait, because Kevin Durant also jumped in and cooked Beverley later. But to understand why this spiraled so fast, we've got to rewind to where it all actually started. Like most Patrick Beverley situations, it didn't happen on the court or in practice. It started online, of course. A random fan asked a simple Twitter question. Why do players go harder in summer pickup runs than they do in the actual All-Star game? A fair question, nothing crazy, no shots fired. But Pat couldn't help himself. He jumped in with one of those "I speak for everybody" type replies. He basically said All-Stars take the game for granted, claiming not a single All-Star on the floor really plays hard, giving more respect to open run hoopers instead. And without saying names, he clearly hinted that Trey Young was part of the issue.
Well, what is it? What's his answer? How does he want to speak for himself? Like, well, okay, speak for yourself then. What does he want to say?
I don't know. I don't think he's in a position to speak.
He never tagged Trey directly, but the message was loud enough that fans instantly connected the dots. Trey saw it, and instead of going off, he kept it short and sharp. He replied, "Relax. Let us speak for ourselves." 8 words, no insults, no rant, just clean and direct. And it made Pat look like he was hiding behind the entire NBA to push his own opinion.
He's been to the playoffs 3 times.
Okay.
Right? I've been to the playoffs 9.
That's what really hit. Beverley wasn't just sharing a take, he was acting like players don't respect the All-Star game, and Trey checked him immediately. The internet loved it. Within minutes, screenshots were everywhere. Fans started posting Trey highlights, logo threes, waving goodbye to the Knicks crowd, bowing at Madison Square Garden, reminding everyone real quick that Trey's resume is way too solid for Pat to pretend nobody rates him. At the same time, people started pulling up Beverley's stats. And let's be real for a second. When your career average sits in single digits,
I've talked to people who played in Atlanta. They don't want to play there.
Why?
They don't think he's a good leader. They don't think he's a good teammate.
you probably shouldn't be the one guarding the gates to All-Star talk. That contrast right there, Trey's calm, quiet clapback versus Pat's loud, non-stop energy, is exactly why people instantly lean toward Trey. And this wasn't even Hawks fans pushing it. Neutral NBA fans were laughing because the power balance looked wild. It felt like a role player trying to lecture a franchise star. And everyone could see it. The jokes wrote themselves, and the internet ran with it fast.
This ain't the Atlanta Hawks. Because I would tell you myself, I have a lot of teammates I keep in touch with, a lot.
Now here's where it could have ended. A quick online spat, a few memes, then everyone moves on. But if you know Patrick Beverley, you know he never lets things die like that. This is a guy whose whole brand is being the loudest voice anywhere, on the court or behind a mic. So instead of letting it cool off, he doubled down and dragged the beef onto his podcast. That's when it stopped being petty and turned into a real storyline. The moment Beverley turned Trey's name into content, it stopped being about All-Star games and became about credibility, careers, and clout. On the Pat Bev podcast, he kept circling back to Trey, not once, but over and over again.
And the accolades say that you were. But I promise you, anytime you was on the court with me, I was never scared of you. I was never scared of Patty Bev.
And instead of breaking down hoops with respect, he tried painting Trey as a stats guy without respect, hinting he's someone teammates supposedly complain about behind closed doors. I don't know. I don't think he's in a position to speak. That's basically code for saying, yeah, you get numbers, but nobody really sees you as a leader. And coming from Pat, that line hits way different. This isn't LeBron talking. This isn't KD or Shaq dropping wisdom. That's why people laughed more than they nodded along. The delivery just didn't match the message. When a guy with limited offensive impact starts lecturing a centerpiece star, it feels off. He says, I've been to the playoffs 9 times. Cool, okay, but context matters, and fans caught that instantly. And Beverley didn't stop there. He doubled down hard. He leaned into the resume talk, stressing his 9 playoff appearances versus Trae's 3, reminding everyone that during his first 7 seasons, he never missed the postseason. The message was clear. Trae's shine hasn't fully turned into winning yet. Then he pushed it further. I've talked to people who played in Atlanta.
But I promise it's not a selfish bone in my body. But I know a lot of people was wanting me probably just to listen to that Drake song and post that.
That's what he claimed. He said they don't see Trae as a strong leader. They don't think he's a great teammate. And he framed it like a legacy warning, saying, score all you want, get paid, lead the league in assists. But if you don't win, none of it matters. He even said once you retire, people forget your name fast. That's when this stopped being light trash talk. Beverley wasn't clowning Trae's defense or size anymore. He was going at the core of his career, questioning leadership, questioning long-term relevance, questioning whether he'd be remembered at all. For a guy still in his prime at 27, with his whole career ahead of him, that's deeper than noise. That's a direct shot at identity. And Beverley knew exactly what he was doing. Say Trey Young isn't respected, and ESPN turns it into a headline instantly. Fans start debating it, timelines heat up, and suddenly Pat is back in the spotlight.
Keep Trey's name out your mouth, Pat, before this gets embarrassing for you.
That's been his hustle for years. He might not swing games, but he knows how to grab headlines. The moment he put Trae's name into his content, he upgraded this from a basic Twitter jab into a full-blown narrative. From that point on, every time Trae played, Pat's name came up too, which honestly feels like the whole goal from the jump. So after Beverley unloaded that long podcast rant, a lot of people expected Trae to snap back with something quick and petty, but that's not what happened. Instead, Trae sat down and gave a calm, methodical response that didn't just clap back, it flipped the entire conversation. First thing Trae did was call out the obvious. If Pat is going to claim unnamed former Hawks teammates told him they didn't like Trae and that the locker room was calling it Trae's Hawks, then put names on it. Say your source. Trae made it clear he still talks to plenty of his old teammates and none of them ever said anything like that to Pat. That's when fans leaned in hard. Pat was throwing vague claims, but Trae came with straight receipts. Then Trae shut down the idea that Beverley ever intimidated him. To Trae, Pat's whole defensive bulldog act is just noise. He made it clear he was never scared of him. Not even Patty Bass, as he put it. Coming from a smaller guard who's been targeted his whole career, that hit different.
Pat, if you're starving for attention or a job, hit me directly. Don't try to boost yourself by coming at that kid.
And Trae didn't keep it personal. He flipped the mirror back on Pat's career and reminded everyone about that infamous play-in game. The one where Pat celebrated with the Timberwolves like he won a championship after knocking out the Clippers. Trae's point was simple, and it landed clean. And then came the moment everyone expected, but not the way they thought. Instead of just dropping that Drake line about bench players talking like starters and walking away, Trae stopped and broke it down. He even said fans probably wanted him to just post the lyric and be done with it, but he wanted to explain the meaning behind it. It wasn't just a bar, it was the cleanest way to frame the situation. A role player building noise by throwing shade at an all-star. Trae made it clear it wasn't coming from ego either. I promise it's not a selfish bone in my body, he said, making the intent obvious. And then Atlanta jumped in too. The Hawks official page posted a highlight reel of Trae cooking Beverley in past matchups. That was the ultimate alley-oop, and fans loved every second of it. At that point, it stopped being Trae versus Pat. It turned into Atlanta versus Beverley. And of course, Pat couldn't let it sit. He hopped back on YouTube and doubled down hard. He went right back to the empty stats angle, saying Trae's numbers don't lead to wins. He questioned his leadership, claimed players don't want to play in Atlanta, and even took it further by throwing shots at Trae's work ethic.
James gets very upset with Chalmers right here and gets in his face.
He said, compared to other stars he's been around, he never sees Trae putting in work at the Hawks facility. But by then, fans weren't buying it. Pat was stretching the beef into a full psychoanalysis of Trey Young's career. Meanwhile, Trey's calm, precise responses made him look like the grown man in the room, even when he wrapped it up saying he had nothing but love for Beverley, and that Pat could reach out if he really wanted to talk. It landed strong. It felt like a closer. The beef wasn't dead, but this round was clearly Trey's. He cooked him, and just when it seemed like things might cool off, Kevin Durant jumped in, and KD doesn't tweet unless he means it. Out of nowhere, one word: delusional. That was it. But coming from KD, that's a haymaker. Pat barking at stars isn't new. He's gone at Westbrook, Harden, even KD himself back in the Clippers days. But this was different. KD wasn't defending himself. He was backing Trae. And that hits different when it's coming from a Hall of Famer in waiting, a two-time Finals MVP, and someone who doesn't hand out praise lightly. So when KD called Pat out, it instantly validated Trae's side of this whole thing. Like if Trae's resume wasn't already loud enough, KD co-signing that Beverley was out of line made it feel like the case was basically closed. And somehow, that still wasn't the end of it. Because as if one heavyweight backing Trae wasn't enough, LeBron James stepped in next, and that changed everything. LeBron didn't need a rant. He didn't need a podcast segment. He didn't even need to explain himself. Just a few sharp words, and suddenly the full weight of King James landed right on Beverley's shoulders. If this was just another role player piling on, nobody would have cared. But when LeBron even hints that you're reaching, your credibility goes up in smoke. Pat wanted attention, no doubt, just not this kind of attention. And the timing made it worse because LeBron was only getting started. Him jumping in wasn't random internet noise at all. It actually said a lot about how LeBron sees his place in the league. LeBron has always been protective of younger players, especially guards like Trae, the guys carrying the future of the NBA. And that's something he does very differently from the legend he grew up watching. Think about it. Michael Jordan didn't exactly welcome the next generation with open arms, especially not LeBron. He wasn't out here publicly co-signing young stars. If anything, MJ wanted to remind everyone he was still the alpha. But LeBron flips that script. He makes sure the young guys feel supported, not pushed aside. So when Beverley came at Trae, LeBron stepping in wasn't just about checking Pat. It was about setting a tone, protecting Trae's name, and reinforcing a bigger message about respecting the next wave of stars. You don't need to drop 30 to trend anymore. You just need a mic, a clip, and a quote spicy enough for Twitter to run wild. The Pat Bev podcast became his real arena. And in that space, calling out Trey Young wasn't about the Hawks' win-loss record. It was about creating heat, pulling views, and keeping himself in the conversation, especially as his on-court impact started fading. But the danger in that hustle is obvious. NBA fans can smell forced drama from a mile away, and the narrative formed fast. Here's Pat Bev, closer to retirement than relevance, poking a star just to stay visible. That's why his shots about Trae being an empty stats guy or a locker room problem didn't land the way he wanted. Instead of boosting his own stock, he made Trae look like the one being unfairly targeted. It's not that Beverley doesn't believe what he's saying. He's always been wired to compete and bark at bigger names. But the timing, the career stage, and the fact his biggest moments now come with a podcast logo attached made it easy for LeBron and KD to flip this into a bigger lesson about clout chasing. But right when that narrative hit its peak, LeBron dropped the second hammer. And this one wasn't just a clap back. This felt like a career obituary delivered by the face of the league. You could feel the shift instantly. Nobody was debating Trae versus Pat anymore. The whole storyline flipped into LeBron versus Pat. And that's a matchup nobody in NBA history survives. The timing couldn't have been worse for Beverley either. He was already on shaky ground, bouncing between short-term deals and openly flirting with the idea of retirement if no team called. So when LeBron framed Pat's entire routine as a desperate grab for attention and a paycheck, it stuck hard. But here's what really made it hurt. LeBron didn't just defend Trae, he shut down Beverley's entire strategy. Think about it. Pat Bev's podcast works because he takes shots at stars, waits for them to respond, and feeds off the reaction. That's how he stays relevant. But when LeBron says, "If you want attention, come at me," he flips the whole script. He takes away Pat's ability to punch down. From that point on, every time Beverley talks about Trae or any younger player, it feels cheap because LeBron already labeled it desperation, and fans agreed because the message hit too close to home. The NBA is full of older players and former guys who pivoted into media and actually made it work. JJ Redick, Draymond Green, even Gilbert Arenas. But the difference is simple. Those guys built their platforms on insight and personality. Beverley tried to build his on beef, and LeBron just showed everyone why that formula doesn't last. The irony is, Pat probably thought poking Trae would be safe. A young star, no ring yet, easy target to label as overrated. But instead, it pulled in LeBron, KD, and the entire internet. And suddenly, this wasn't a fair fight at all. From that moment on, the debate stopped being is Trey Young overrated and turned into is Patrick Beverley finished? And if you think Pat is the only role player who picked a fight with a superstar and lost badly, think again. The NBA is packed with cautionary tales like this, and they almost always end the same way. The smaller name talks, the big name responds, and suddenly it's career damage control time. Take Mario Chalmers versus LeBron. Chalmers once barked at LeBron during a Heat game, and LeBron snapped back so hard Dwayne Wade had to physically hold him back. Chalmers wasn't a bad player, but that clip followed him forever. He became remembered as the guy who yelled at LeBron and almost got folded, not for his actual contributions. Or look at Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear during those Pacers Heat battles. For a week, it was funny. For a season, it was memes. But by the time Lance was out of the league, that ear blow was his defining moment, not the big shots he actually hit. He turned himself into a gimmick, and gimmicks don't last. Even Dylan Brooks fell into the same trap. He called LeBron old before the Grizzlies faced the Lakers in the 2023 playoffs. The Lakers cooked Memphis, and Brooks was gone before the dust even settled. That's how fast reputations flip. When you poke someone who outranks you in every possible way, the lesson is simple. Role players can talk, but if you talk at a star, you'd better be ready to back it up. Otherwise, that moment lives forever, and not in the way you want. Pat Bev thought he was building content. Instead, he punched his ticket into the unofficial Hall of Fame of guys who tried to climb the mountain and ended up as the meme. That's the cold part. NBA beefs aren't new at all, but this one hit different because of the era it happened in. The podcast era. 10 years ago, if Patrick Beverley wanted to take shots at Trey Young, he had to wait for a post-game presser and pray a reporter asked the right question. Now he's got his own mic, his own show, and a direct line to millions on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. That changes everything. Because now a wild quote about Trae isn't just trash talk, it's content. It's a clip built to rack up views, feed the algorithm, and maybe even pay the bills if the ads hit right. And fans know that. That's why Beverley's comments didn't land like old school trash talk. Instead of feeling raw, they felt like clickbait. Pat leaned too hard into conflict. And when you aim that energy at someone like Trae, the internet clock starts ticking. Fans are smarter now. They've seen older players chase clout, and they know when a storyline is being forced. That's exactly why LeBron's call-out hit so hard. It confirmed what people already felt. This beef wasn't just about basketball. It was about the economics of attention. Beverley wanted to turn Trae into a storyline. Instead, LeBron flipped the script and turned Beverley into the warning sign. By the time everything settled, the scoreboard looked ugly. Pat Bev didn't just lose the beef, he lost control of his image. What started as an attempt to clown Trey Young turned into a spotlight on his own fall-off. The moment LeBron framed him as desperate for relevance and a job. GMs and executives hear that noise too. And in a league where locker room chemistry matters, no front office wants to invite a distraction from a guy trending for the wrong reasons. That stuff sticks. Meanwhile, Trae came out of this looking better than ever. He barely had to lift a finger. His short clapback showed restraint. His longer statement showed maturity. And with LeBron and KD backing him publicly, his reputation took a real jump. All of a sudden, Trae wasn't just the flashy scorer anymore. He was the young star, respected enough for the league's biggest names to step in and protect. That's a massive credibility boost heading straight into his prime years. For Beverley, though, the road ahead looks messy. If no contract comes, he'll probably lean even harder into the podcast lane. And yeah, there's still money there. Controversy sells. But the more he chases drama, the more he risks being remembered less as a defender and more as the guy who went viral for all the wrong reasons. That's the irony. Beverley always prided himself on being authentic, the guy who never backed down. But to fans, this whole situation made him look like exactly what he hates, a clout chaser. And once that label sticks, it's almost impossible to shake. For Trae, the next time Beverley or anyone else comes at him, he doesn't even need to respond. Everyone already knows who will step in if it goes too far. And that's how Patrick Beverley went from trying to clown Trey Young to getting humbled by KD, LeBron, and the entire internet. So here's the real question. Is this the end of Pat Bev's NBA career or just the start of his podcast villain era? If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and drop your take below. Who handled this beef best? Trae with the quiet clapbacks, KD with the one-word kill shot, or LeBron with the final hammer?